Here we go, lean in, don't blink. If you want the truth to keep breathing, like, subscribe, and comment what you think happened. The shadows are listening, and they keep score. He didn't make it. But the idea did. Episode 1, The Spark That Wouldn't Die. They told us he slipped between the rails, an accident, a bad night, a blurred camera. They told us to let him go the way you let smoke curl out a window, regretfully, but without chasing it. The city did what cities do, shrugged. But the walls kept a secret. Someone had written 3 words under the bridge in thin white spray paint, the kind you don't notice until headlights cut across it just right. The idea lives. I didn't know him intimately. Everyone called him Dami, but in the newsroom we called him a problem. Not because he made trouble, but because truth often does when it comes with proofs and timestamps. He was 25 and had a habit of leaving coffee rings on declassified documents. The more he smiled, the more nervous the powerful got. He had been working a story we weren't allowed to say out loud, something about contracts that guaranteed money for roads that didn't exist and scholarships that went to ghosts. 2 weeks before the accident, Dami took me to a stall that sold grilled corn outside the courthouse and asked if I knew what a ledger looked like when it was scared. It trembles, he said, not smiling. Numbers hide. They pretend to be zeros. But you can hear the lie if you listen. He handed me a burner phone with a single app and no contacts. If anything happens, he said, you'll get a message only once. Don't reply. Just move. When the call came, it wasn't a call. The phone vibrated 3 times and showed a single dot on a gray map, an address beneath the bridge by the freight yard. I went alone. It was close to midnight, horns moaning low on the river, rain so thin it felt like static. Under the bridge, the white scrawl, "The idea lives," watched me the way a witness does. There was a lockbox inside a dead power cabinet, exactly where the map said. Inside, a USB drive wrapped in wax paper, a key card with no logo, and a note written in block letters, "Pawn moves first." None of it made sense until it did, which is how these things usually go. Back at the newsroom, my editor Rena took the lockbox and the note and told me to get sleep. She had that calm you learn when you've been sued 5 times and keep your job anyway. If this is what I think it is, she said, we're not running into a gunfight with a spoon. We verify. We breathe. We don't die. We plugged the drive into a computer that never touched the internet. It opened to a folder named Dawn with subfolders titled with ordinary words: market, schools, roads, clinics. Inside each, spreadsheets that didn't look like spreadsheets. They looked like confessions. Payments scheduled to shell companies with similar names, invoices for equipment that arrived twice, signatures that looped the same in different hands. The patterns were careful. But ghosts leave footprints if you dust for them correctly. Dami had already dusted. In the corner of the roads folder was a document called Idea. It wasn't a file, it was a manifesto in 6 bullet points. No theory. No slogans. Just steps. 1. Upload evidence to mirrored servers Dami had scattered across university clubs and community centers. 2. Give every file a simple name anyone could remember. 3. Let citizens check themselves, is your town's clinic on the list? 4. Teach teenagers to verify receipts. 5. Publish in small bites, 1 road, 1 school, 1 lie at a time. 6. Never meet in large groups. Never beg permission. Never wait for heroes. There was no sign-off, no signature flourish. Just the line he used to close all his emails: what we can prove, we can change. Rena swiveled her chair to face the window, rain misting the glass. If he built this, they won't just be angry, she said. They'll be afraid. I didn't ask the question I wanted to ask, because it had an answer I didn't want. Did Dami know he wasn't going to make it? People who build exit routes sometimes do it because they plan to use them. Sometimes they build them because they know they won't get the chance. We started to verify. Quietly. I took clinics, because my aunt runs one, and because medicine leaves paper trails even when money tries not to. A clinic 3 towns over had billed for refrigerator units to store vaccines. The unit never arrived. But the payment did, twice. On paper, the vaccines were safe. In real life, nurses dumped polio vials in buckets of ice on market days and prayed. The ledger trembled. The zeros pretended not to be numbers. At noon the next day, the phone Dami gave me buzzed again. New dot. New note. Night walk. Rena told me not to go. She said it was bait, said we'd hand everything to a lawyer, said the safest path was patience. I agreed, then I went anyway. The dot led to a service entrance behind the municipal archives. The key card opened a door I wasn't sure should exist. A bare hallway, cameras blinking. A second door, locked. On the floor, taped under a loose tile, I found a second USB, smaller than the first, and a card with a chessboard printed on it. A pawn on e4. Pawn moves first, again. I didn't hear them until they were behind me. 2 security guards in uniforms without names, polite in the way people are when they don't need to be. They asked for ID, then asked again like the answer would be different the second time. One of them glanced at the card in my hand and something in his face flickered, a tiny, involuntary recognition. I left without a struggle. I told them I'd been lost. I smiled the way you smile when you've had a long day and the parking meter ate your coins. I crossed the lot and felt their eyes on my back until I turned the corner and ran. Back at the office, Rena wasn't at her desk. A black car I'd never seen idled on the street, engine muttering. I pretended not to notice it. I pretended I had always been this calm. The second USB was different. Encrypted like the first, but heavier with video. Meetings in hotel conference rooms where men in suits spoke in that slow, careful way rich people do when they think a room is theirs. A USB camera in a bouquet. A conference badge with a pinhole. In one clip, a familiar shape crossed the background, my editor Rena, hair tied back, face a mask. She wasn't part of the meeting. She was there before it, after it, a shadow collecting shadows. When I paused the frame, I saw it, the gleam of the same keycard clipped to her bag. I told myself 100 safe stories. I told myself she was running a parallel track for protection. That she'd been approached and was playing along to buy us time. That Dami had planned this, that the pawn moves first, the bishop waits, the queen takes the king when no one's looking. I told myself that until I found the third video. It was Dami in a cafe at sunset, half his face in gold light, laughing at something off camera. Rena sat opposite him. No audio. The footage was spliced from 2 angles, the bouquet again, and a coat hook. At the end, Dami slid a manila envelope across the table. Rena didn't touch it. She pushed a single sheet back to him instead, a list of names. He read, and the smile left the room. The black car outside had not moved. In the reflection on the window I saw my face and, behind it, a door open, then close. Steps. Not hurried. Balanced. I put the USB back in the lockbox and slid the box into the hollow behind the bottom drawer of my desk, a trick Dami had taught me when we practiced hiding things we weren't sure we'd ever get to publish. I shut down the air-gapped computer, lifted the battery from the burner phone, wiped my prints from the key card, then put them all back exactly where I'd found them, but not before doing the one thing Dami's manifesto insisted on. I made copies. 2 drives. One taped under the 3rd tile of my bathroom floor. One mailed to a teacher Dami once called the only adult who ever told me to be louder, with a note in block letters, pawn moves first. The footsteps stopped at my desk. Rena stood there with a face I couldn't read and a paper cup of coffee I didn't want. You went, she said. Not a question. Her eyes flicked to the drawer and away. You weren't followed, were you? There are moments that define whether you live like a headline or like a footnote. I told the truth that helps, I don't think so. She exhaled slowly. We're not alone in this, she said. There's a committee forming. Lawyers. Editors from papers that don't even like us. If we publish the right piece first, the others will hold the line. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe the car outside was protecting us. I wanted to believe the pawn wasn't just bait for a rook. We moved to the war room, a windowless conference space we used for stories that couldn't afford sunlight too early. Rena set a recorder on the table and didn't turn it on. If this goes, she said, it will go fast. People will panic, and then they will deny, and then they will rewrite. Our job is to make the first version so clean it cannot be washed. We drew the map, which clinic, which road, which school, which lie. We argued over the order. We did the work that makes ideas stronger than anyone carrying them. In that room, with the hum of the server rack like a steady breath, I almost forgot the bridge, the paint, the camera with the wrong angle, the way the guard's face changed when he saw the chess card. Near midnight, my phone, a different one, buzzed with a message from a number that used to be Dami's and now belonged to no one. It contained a single line: if she hesitates, move the knight. I looked at Rena. She watched me read, then looked at the wall where we'd pinned the 6-step manifesto. She tapped step 6. Never meet in large groups. Never beg permission. Never wait for heroes. Tomorrow, she said, we publish the clinics. Tomorrow, I echoed. But morning came with a different truth: our CMS refused to upload. The site's staging server was under maintenance. Our emails returned undelivered. The black car had multiplied into 2, and a third shadow parked across the street with no plates at all. Rena arrived late. She wore the same clothes from the night before and a new expression, like glass, smooth and impossible to grab. She closed the war room door. Change of plan, she said. We hold the clinics. We start with roads. It's safer. The knight in my pocket, the copy drive, suddenly felt very heavy. Safer for who? I asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Safety in stories is a currency, and today it wasn't ours. I thought of Dami's 6 points, the order of them. I thought of the teenagers he wanted counting receipts, of nurses dunking vaccines in ice, of the quiet white paint under the bridge promising that the idea didn't need its author to breathe. I thought of the pawn moving first not because it was brave, but because someone had to move or the board would sit forever, quiet and polite and useless. I took a breath. I reached for the keyboard. And instead of opening roads, I opened clinics. I wrote a headline so simple it felt like a door anyone could walk through. Where the cold went missing. Rena's hand hovered over my wrist, then fell away. She watched me type the lead, watched me lace it with proof, watched me attach the first file from the mirrored server Dami had built across libraries and youth clubs and borrowed Wi-Fi routers. She didn't stop me. Outside, one of the black cars pulled away, then returned, then stayed still. The server hum rose like someone clearing a throat. For a second I saw the city in my head as a chessboard, not neat at all, streets spilling into rumor, rumors building into evidence, evidence into a chorus. He didn't make it. But sitting there, cursor blinking, publish button waiting, I understood what Dami had been building all along. Not a story. Not a headline. A relay. I clicked publish. Somewhere, far from our newsroom and its broken elevators and late rent, a nurse stared at a screen and realized the reason her ice melted too fast had a name. Somewhere, a teenager refreshed a page and learned what a ledger sounds like when it stops pretending to be zero. Somewhere, a man in a suit reached for his phone and found that the battery, inexplicably, had died. Rena let out a breath I hadn't noticed she'd been holding. The board just changed, she said. Good, I answered. Because they're about to flip it. She looked at the door. Then at me. If I hesitate, she said softly, move the knight. There are betrayals that arrive like thunder. There are others you only hear after the rain. I didn't know which storm we were in yet. But the headline was live, and footsteps were already gathering in the hall. To be continued in episode 2.